Greetings, Vault Hunters all across the 6 galaxies. Welcome to this very special edition of the Bordercast. While we are live today on Wednesday this week at a very special time, we will be returning to our normal schedule starting next week on June 16th, and we'll resume our typical show every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And with all that being said, I'm Mitsu.
And I'm Tessichka, coming to you every week to break down all things Borderlands.
'Twas the night before takedown, Mitsu doth say. Guardians shall appear in mere hours and no longer a day, actually. Because that's right. The Guardian takedown is just under 24 hours away, and we cannot be more excited to finally play it. But first, I just want to take a second, once again, as always, to thank all of our new listeners on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and those watching live right now on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, or later on the VOD. If you're enjoying the program, we would love for you guys to give us a big ol' like, follow, or favorite so we can surprise more people by explicably showing up in their feeds.
Revenge of the Cartels is ending tomorrow, but the takedown is launching tomorrow, and Borderlands Legendary Collection is now available on the Nintendo Switch. So if you have a Switch, if you're one of the lucky people to own one, you can play the entire Borderlands Legendary Collection in your hands, on your couch, wherever you are. Tonight's very special edition of the Bordercast will also include an amazing interview that Mitsu and I got to do with the game director of Borderlands and creative director of post-launch content, Graham Timmons and Grant Cow. We'll also be breaking down IGN's latest gameplay footage of the next DLC, Bounty of Blood, due out June 25th. What an incredible show. Yes, you can totally play your Switch on the roof. Why not? Just don't fall, please.
On the porch, on the roof, in your bed. That's usually my preferred place to do so. That's how I unwind. Playing Borderlands is kind of my thing.
Killing bad guys in video games. Always a good thing. Always.
That's the way to be. That is the way to be. Normally, we would open the show by talking about what we've done over the course of the past however long it has been, but we have so much to jump to. We're gonna break it all down right now in a little segment that is not so little today that we love to call here on the Bordercast, Hot Fixes Applied. Breaking news. A little while ago, we had the genuine honor of finding out that we will be able to get the green light to talk to you about all the things that you guys are definitely going to want to know about in the upcoming patch tomorrow. And I cannot wait to bring all of this to you guys. Tess, do you wanna tell them the first bullet point because it's the big one?
Sure. The takedown at Guardian Breach will be added to the game permanently.
Yay!
So excited to see this.
Yay,
So
we did
excited to
it.
play it. So excited to watch you guys play it. Oh my god, it's going to be incredible. Also, Fight for Your Life improvements are in. These are improvements that have been a long time coming, and we're so excited to have them in the game finally. Cooperative reviving. More players reviving one person means faster reviving. So if one of your friends dies and all three of you are next to him, you can literally pile on top of him and be like, live, friend, live.
It's going to be so great for the takedown tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's going to be utilized so much.
You know he's telling the truth when he says that because he's actually played it. I have not. I'm very excited.
We'll talk about that later.
Movement of a player being revived has been slowed to prevent unintended revive breaks. So if you're so focused on shooting the guy in front of you while you're down, you can't get away from your friends. They will save you. Interactive radius around down players increased. Okay, so you don't have to be right on top of your friend's head to revive them. That's good. That's good.
Yes.
Visual effects to a down player being revived and to the player being revived to know they're being revived. Okay, so no matter how focused you are on shooting that bad guy, you will be able to realize that your friends are trying to save your life and you're downed. Very cool.
They are very obvious too, if I recall. I think we got a preview of them on the most recent Borderlands show. I don't remember, but I feel like we did see them, and they're in your face. So you will know when somebody is trying to help you out. So if you continue to mess up, now it's on you, honestly. So get it together.
Yeah. Several stability and optimization improvements. Those are always being added, which is so awesome to see. Addressed concern where 300% and 90% anointment was not working properly with non-flesh enemy types. Very cool.
That's a big change.
Yeah, that's a big important change. That's a wonderful anointment. So glad to see it working correctly. Borderlands Science now has a 10-second cooldown before a player can request a new puzzle. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think that was put in probably because players were like scanning a puzzle real quick and be like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this one. Boop, change. So now there's a little bit of a cooldown. So they're kind of like pushing everybody to at least attempt a little bit of the puzzle before trying to move on to the next one. Especially for the data collection, that seems like a very important thing to have because they want to get as many eyes on as many puzzles as possible.
It's better to do a puzzle even if it looks hard and you're not going to get the high score or you're not going to get whatever. You're still going to get some points so that you can use them on boosters. Like, just do as much as you can. It's better to do a little bit and do some of it than not do it at all and skip.
Yes.
So, Borderlands Science boosters have been adjusted, so joining another game session will no longer remove the boost. Wow, I actually didn't know that this was a problem. I'm really glad they fixed it because those boosters, that butt milk though, is so good. It's so good.
I'd heard tales told. I forget exactly who brought it up, but I feel like it was a fellow streamer or a couple fellow streamers. So this is a big deal, and I'm glad that they are changing it.
BL Science mobile game, please. I want to know when to. I want. Everybody wants, please. Okay, anyway, moving on. EchoCast, an in-world marker, will be added to improve discoverability of moxtail chests in-game. Oh, nice. That's super, 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 super awesome.
Yes.
And this is the really, really, really big one. Mayhem 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, you guys, the big change, the first set of big changes. Now, if you guys read the dev blog recently, you heard about most of the changes coming to Mayhem 2.0. These are based almost entirely on the feedback from the community. We're going to hear more about all of these changes from the devs in the interview that we got to do with them shortly, but these are the changes that are coming in this patch, and then more changes are coming in phase 2 in the patch that will happen along with the launch of the next DLC, which we'll also be previewing later.
I am so excited for these. This okay. Oof. Are you ready? I might want to just take a moment. Okay, I'm good. Okay, the most important thing, the single most important thing, Mayhem 2.0 stats will be rebalanced in levels 7 through 10. We're going to talk about it a little bit more with Grant and Graham. They will break down the actual numbers and why they did it. But yes, there will be a health, armor, and shield crunch, and they will break it down in a little bit.
Yeah.
Another change is only the host of a session can now roll and apply modifiers in Mayhem. I actually did not know that you could reroll as a guest. I could have trolled the poop out of Psychotic Wolf and didn't even realize it.
Have been trolled.
My bad. Agonizer 9000, Kraken, Wotan, and Aista should now be dropping their appropriate Mayhem level gear. I know this was a huge problem that people were having, especially when it came to Aista and the Skullmasher. Hey!
Nice. Very nice.
Yes.
Good changes.
The modifiers Rally and Change Gang will no longer roll together. And this next one, Tess, you and I have talked about this extensively.
Yes.
Floor is Lava now fires less frequently, and the damage taken by Floor is Lava will not count towards keeping a player in combat. God bless America.
Yeah, that one was rough. I basically always skipped over it because we played it a lot in the preview session that we did, and I learned that this was not a modifier that I wanted to have in my set of modifiers, and every single time I would just avoid it. So I'm really, really glad that they made that change because now maybe I'll allow it every now and then.
Yes, this one was huge. I remember when do you remember when we did our recordings for kind of like the gameplay preview of Mayhem 2.0? This was one of the modifiers that we really wanted to play around with. And then as we were going about, we were like, wait, we're still in combat and there's still lava pools opening. And this happened for the better part of maybe 2 minutes. And finally we figured out, we just have to keep moving around until combat drops, whenever that is.
Yeah.
So this was a
good
big
change. One. Definitely good change.
Very good change. Chain Gang now creates beams when a player is close and dissipates when further away. The Revenge of the Cartel's anointments are permanently in the game as potential anointment rolls.
That's awesome. We
Gearbox,
can't
did it.
keep the
You're
event,
best.
but we can keep the really awesome anointments. So that's fantastic.
And we'll actually talk a little bit more about those anointments in another change that's coming in a few seconds. But first, I think, Tess, if you want to tell the people.
So this is a change I am so psyched about. Those of you guys that have watched me stream, you know how much I adore SMGs, all SMGs, especially the Cutsman, but all SMGs. Several SMGs in the patch that's dropping tomorrow have had their weapon damage increased, including Bitch, Handsome Jackhammer, Devoted, Cloudkill, Tsunami, 10-Gallon, Ripper, and Vanquisher. Both weapon damage and the bonus sliding damage for that one, which is so cool. I'm so excited because literally SMGs have been my favorite weapon type through all of the Borderlands franchise. I'm so excited to be able to use them more, to be able to use them all the time.
They're buffing the Bitch. I'm going to have to start playing who Bitch this is again. It's one of my favorite games.
So good.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'll break the bad news for them.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys can hate me, but I'm the messenger, but I am sorry, and we will talk about this with Grant and Graham in a couple seconds. Unfortunately, the Sandhawk, the Yellow Cake, and the Chaosin were nerfed. And we will let Graham and Grant explain why in detail in a couple minutes.
Just a little.
However, just a little bit. And there is justification why. And just to preface this, it's worth reminding everybody, while these guns are getting nerfed, there is a stat crunch from Mayhem's 7 to 10. So will you feel a pinch? Yes. Is it a pinch, though? Yes. It's not like you're being amputated. No. So it sucks, but there are a lot of things being buffed, like the SMGs Tess just talked about, and there are a lot of reasons why.
Yeah, there's a ton of original guns that we loved from before that are going to be more viable. There's a ton of guns that are being raised up even beyond what they were in the past. So it's really not, we promise it's not going to be that bad. You'll see why in just a moment. You will see.
And for those of you in chat right now, yes, I did not mention the OPQ. The OPQ is safe. It's gonna make a lot of people very happy.
Yeah, I like that gun a lot too. And then also all airborne, slide fire rate, action skill end, and the auto bear activate incendiary damage anointments are receiving buffs. These are important buffs. You'll find out why soon.
Yes, you know what? That's the best way to do the tease. Grant and Graham, do an excellent job of breaking this down, and rather than ramble on about it any further, I think the people definitely deserve to hear it. So without further ado, we bring to you Graham, the creative director of post-launch content for Borderlands 3, and Grant Cow, the game designer for Borderlands 3, who sat down and had a chat with Tess and I to further elaborate on upcoming balance and changes to weapon damage and Mayhem 7 plus health, and why these nerfs to some guns and buffs to others may not be as drastically significant in the long term as some of you may fear. Without further ado, here they are. Hey guys, we have the pleasure of actually sitting down with Graham, the creative director of post-launch content for Borderlands 3, and Grant, the game designer for Borderlands 3, and we have the genuine pleasure today of being able to talk with them a little bit more about the upcoming changes in the new patch for Borderlands 3. Thank you, gentlemen, both for taking the time out of your busy schedules to speak with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
So the first question I wanted to ask both of you is a very simple but powerful question. Going forward, we understand that there's going to be a crunch of sorts to how health, shields, and armor is scaling from Mayhem 7 to Mayhem 10. Could you please elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. So when we relaunched Mayhem 2.0, we saw that a lot of people coming from Mayhem 4 in the original version of Mayhem were able to kind of slot into 6 pretty immediately and find a good challenge there. And it was levels past 6 where there was a lot of difficulty for people to kind of work their way up there. So we determined that with this first phase of some changes to Mayhem, to lower the cap at the highest level at Mayhem 10 and bring that down to just 10,000% stat bonus for health, shield, and armor. And then we rebalanced 7, 8, and 9 to make that ladder up to 10 a more smooth transition between them, so there aren't so many like spikes in difficulty.
Okay. What specifically informed that change? Because I believe at Mayhem 10, originally it was 12,500%, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And so why 10,000 now? Yeah, about that, yeah.
Just a little rough.
What specifically informed this crunch now into 10?
Well, obviously, we relied on our community a lot. We have, thankfully, a very active community. I watch a lot of the streams. I read our forums. I read Reddit. And the commentary there was pretty clear that a lot of people were having just a difficult time getting into 10 at 12,500%. Mm-hmm. You know, the way we built this system is, you know, rely on those values to increase the difficulty. And then we also have all of the new modifiers that were added in Mayhem 2.0. And so that kind of combination of the high value health, shield, and armor stats on top of some pretty difficult modifiers at the highest level of Mayhem. You know, we really like the modifiers. We didn't want to make any changes to them. We found that they were doing what we had hoped in terms of pushing players to try some different builds, to think about things they hadn't thought about in our combat loop. We wanted to approach any difficulty changes that we wanted at the stats level first. So that's where we're at.
Sure. There's been a bit of an issue right now where the term homogenization sometimes comes to the forefront of builds being very specific and weapons being very specific. And your goal, it seems, by doing this is to free up a lot more room at the top end to have players be able to come in with more build diversity and more weapon and gear diversity going forward. And so I kind of want to pose this question to you, Grant. We know that there are some guns that are going to be adjusted. What can you tell us first, though, about the guns that are going to be perhaps buffed in a way, and where your thought process lied in buffing those particular weapons?
Yeah, so we were seeing homogenization at the top end, where strict burst damage was the go-to build or the play style for all classes. Yes. And they would just lock into these weapon types that would execute that burst damage as fast as possible. So we're starting to see like different play styles just kind of fall off the board. Mm-hmm. And that is the antithesis of what we want to do. Like, we want to make a game where all weapons, as many weapons as we can support, and as many builds as we can support are viable in some form or fashion, so that we can support different playstyles. Now, obviously, some playstyles will be better than others, right? Like, that's just the natural state of things. But we don't want to deter players from trying different builds. One of the goals of this past adjustments and why we touched the SMG archetype is because the SMG weapon archetype is very versatile in different ranges, right? Like sniper rifles lock you into a long range kind of play style. Assault rifles kind of have this medium to long range, and then pistols are kind of in that medium low range. But whereas SMGs, especially a lot of the unique ones we have, like the Ripper and the Vanquisher, they allow players to play in the short range, the long range, the medium range gameplay, especially if your build kind of fits those play styles. That was one of the first weapon archetypes I wanted to look at. I wanted to revisit the SMGs for a long time now. We have a lot of unique SMGs that fulfill different play loops and styles, such as the Ripper. And the Ripper is one of the examples where I looked at where it's like, well, if you execute the game loop here with this weapon, like if you melee the target and place the debuff on it and then you shoot it, you should be enacting a lot of damage. You should be rewarded for this play loop. So we did that. Like we dramatically increased the damage if you melee someone. What this does is if you have like an Amara with a melee build or some other melee boosting artifact or class mod or whatnot, that you can enact that damage with the Ripper and then fire upon the enemy and gain the gun bonus too. And we're also making some changes to the scaling of formulas in Mayhem, right? So this is all like stacking on top of each other, these benefits to look at like, hey, we're now increasing the damage formula to work in higher levels of Mayhem. We're now promoting a gun that can also take advantage of the scaling formulas in Mayhem. And we're also rewarding the gunplay so that players can utilize this in Mayhem. So that's kind of like where I started. Like the Ripper is a great example of that. And then the Vanquisher is another one where if you slide, you gain a bonus to fire rate. Well, now if you slide, you gain lots of bonuses. Like the damage is increased, fire rate is increased. And we know there's lots of movement builds out there, right? Like there's a lot of slide builds, there's a lot of jump builds. Like as long as you're moving quickly, you can. This kind of plays well with that playstyle build. And also it plays well with the content that's coming up. So it just kind of all made sense for me to look at this weapon archetype. They touch such a variety of builds and playstyles. So the Ripper and the Vanquisher being two good examples of like where I started with the direction.
Right. Tess,
Cool.
I know you love SMGs. This must be very exciting for you.
I do. They're my favorite weapon. They've always been my favorite weapon in all the Borderlands games. It's my favorite range freedom, exactly like you said. Yeah. It's my go-to. Like whenever I'm in trouble, I pull out a Cutsman or I pull out some other SMG. Have you guys made changes to the Chaosun, which I know has been super, super, super popular? And are there other SMGs being adjusted also?
Yeah, so the Chaosun has been adjusted. I'll go into a little bit of backstory of how I designed the Chaosun. The Chaosun is supposed to be a weapon that links to the Chaos. So all the weapons that were introduced in the past event, the patch with the Mayhem 2.0, were all riffs of like popular weapons that were already in the arsenal. The Monarch is linked to the Dictator. The Cutsman had a variant, the DNA, and the Chaosun was linked to the Chaos, right? So we all have there's different links. There's kind of riffs off of the popular guns that were in the game. Well, when we made the Chaosun, it was supposed to be a very versatile dull SMG. Just a legendary SMG with no benefits, no nothing. It's just an easy to use, pick up and play. So it got balanced to have a high damaged value just because it's like, well, it does nothing flashy. It just shoots bullets and is very accurate. But then when we were toward the end of development, we were like, well, the Chaosun is linked to the Chaos. The Chaos has an explosive element when you kill a target. So we should make this one have an explosive element too. So we made all the projectiles explode on contact. Well, we had already did all the balance changes to make it do high base damage, right? And then we added the explosion, which doubled the damage that it did. So we were like, well, it did so much damage. That's kind of like the development cycle of the Chaosun. That said, we've dialed it back a little bit so that the damage, it's still really high. You still get double damage. We're not changing the core functionality of the gun. But we are making it so that it's a little bit less versatile across all ranges. Like this gun was a beast. It was super accurate at long range. It was pinpoint accurate and it fired really fast and it did double damage, right? So we're making it now so that the damage has been slightly adjusted downward. It'll match the top end of all the other SMGs that we've increased. And we've also made it so that when you hold down the fire button for the automatic versions of the Chaosun, your accuracy spread would now increase a little bit larger. So it would make the burst and single fire versions of the gun also a little bit more important and reduce the effectiveness of the auto fire just a tiny bit. So those that want to snipe enemies across the map probably wouldn't use the Chaosun and maybe would rely on another weapon, another sniper, AR, or another SMG.
Even though it's being downgraded a tiny little bit, these changes probably won't be felt that much in later levels of Mayhem because those health and shields are coming down so much in
Right.
7 to 10, right?
Right. Yeah, we're aligning them together with this release because, like, you will notice a change in some of the adjustments we made to weapons, such as the KO Sun and the Yellow Cake. But you will still feel more powerful than the Mayhem, like, scalars that we've adjusted down because we've reduced it dramatically, like 2,500%. Like that's a huge number, and that's 2,500% for shields, armor, and health. So like the anointed enemies or the like hardened tinks, like those guys got double hit, right? Because we're double dipping into different health pools.
Right.
So and we're keeping the Mayhem 10, 9, and 8 weapon scalars in the game the way they are now, right? So in general, your weapons will still be quite powerful. We just looked at the outliers like the KO Sun and the Yellow Cake, and we just like reduced them down to normal levels.
Bringing down that health and shields also makes so many more weapons viable again at those end game high levels. That's the beauty of it, right? So my favorite cutsman I can actually use again. Be so happy.
Yeah, and like some other SMGs that we looked at were like the Handsome Jackhammer. Like we wanted to play with like a splash damage SMG, so a Handsome Jackhammer. We had looked at one of the fan favorites is the Hyperion SMG, the bitch. Like we looked at that one. There's 2 or 3 other ones that we looked at. Generally, if they fell within a certain like playstyle loop, we've increased those. And so there's about 6 or 7 SMGs. We looked at the KO Sun to bring it down, and then the Yellow Cake was another weapon that was a complete outlier. That was more of a fix. That now obviously the community will take it as a nerf, but it was more of a fix in the formula that was accidentally set to a certain way.
Sure. So what exactly happened with it? Why was it so powerful, and how did it get reined in a little bit?
All right, so I can go into the detail on this. Okay. So we have in our back end, when we determine like it's a heavy weapon, and heavy weapons get this bonus adjustment to damage because heavy weapons have limitations such as ammo or whatnot. This heavy weapon was set to scale like a heavy weapon at the core. However, the math operator was set to scale like an SMG. So instead of gaining 1 point, I think it was supposed to be 1.8 as a modifier, so 180%.
Sure.
It was set to scale at 280%. So automatically it gained 100% more damage than it was supposed to.
Yeah. Wow.
And because the functionality of the weapon, it's a projectile that splits in air.
Right.
Projectiles also received this benefit, and it doubled as they split in air. So none of that was intended. I talked to the weapon designer, and the weapon designer, the only intent was that he wanted players to maximize on the range, right? Where the projectile splits and you gain the big benefit of having 4 projectiles, or even I think 8 or 16 projectiles, depending on what range you're at and how much they split.
Right.
And that's the play loop. The damage increase stacking on top of each other was never intended. And when I found the bug, I asked him, I was like, is this intentional? And he was like, no, it's not intentional. So that was an adjustment. The weapon's still very powerful. Average range, you gain 4 projectiles that deal maximum heavy damage without any kind of reduction. Typically, when we split a projectile, we reduce the damage, right? So that if 1 projectile becomes 3, we split the 1 into, maybe 50%. So if you execute it, you gain 50% more damage.
Right.
With the Yellow Cake, we don't split the damage at all. We just say, here, you have 4 projectiles that hit the target. The problem was we increased the damage when it's split. So we've just removed the damage increase. So that's where the Yellow Cake now sits.
But the way that you did it, you didn't split the damage like you have with other weapons. Like shotguns, the damage gets split between each pellet. That didn't happen in this case. It's still retaining a lot of that power. It's just more reined in with where heavy weapons are supposed to be. That's the key point here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It won't be so necessary. Like I played on Mayhem 10 quite a bit. I was only able to do that because I had an OP Yellow Cake. Like that was the only reason. I literally could not survive in Mayhem 10 with any other gun. So, it felt necessary until these changes, but now that these changes to health and shields are being made and all these other weapons are being brought up, that won't be necessary at all. And the Yellow Cake will be viable because of the health and shields coming down and be fun still. That's awesome.
Right. And the Yellow Cake's a good example of just like unfortunate intention with the math operator, but still a great weapon if you execute it at the right range, right? Like that was the whole goal of the weapon, to try to don't just fire and forget this rocket. Fire it at a certain range, make it split, hit all the targets with it, and then do massive amount of damage.
It seems to be an overarching theme I've noticed in a lot of weapons. There's an operative range that you want to reach for certain weapons in order to have that effectiveness level that you guys seem to be looking for. Specifically, the Cutsman comes to mind. You want to have it at a certain length before it really does a lot of the damage that you're looking for. The Lob back in the day had not necessarily an operative range, but you wanted to make sure that you hit it. I guess in a way it was, because you wanted to hit it when it was slower so that it was hitting more
more hits
consistently before the projectile just disappeared. So this is nothing new. It's just that there needed to be a slight change because the math was wrong by accident. And that's fine. That's completely understandable. Another gun I noticed that is getting a huge change is a personal favorite, so I'm a little sad about this one, the Sandhawk. What can you tell us about the Sandhawk?
So the Sandhawk, I mean, that was obviously a fan favorite from the previous Borderlands. And I brought it back, and I wanted to make sure that, it was still well loved. And when I changed it from an SMG to a sniper rifle, I wanted to change it to a sniper rifle because, one, we don't have many unique sniper rifles in the game.
Right.
In addition, we don't have a super fast firing sniper rifle that can compete with some of the ones that we already do have. So I wanted another fast sniper rifle that could compete but have inherent deficiencies, such as the bullets would disappear in very short range, right? Like that was the deficiency with the Sandhawk. However, when I made it spawn 9 projectiles, there was 2 problems. One was, obviously, it does a lot of damage. And then 2 was, we discovered that the effect that it was using was causing massive performance drops, so critical that it could lead to real performance degradation in the game. So we had to literally remove 2 projectiles from the Sandhawk pattern. So if we went from 9 to 7. So effectively, that is a damage reduction, but it's more so that it could secure your game's integrity so that we wouldn't have to deal with any kind of performance degradation.
It's kind of a big deal.
It's kind of a big deal. However, we try to provide greater quality of life changes here. We've increased the range by letting the projectile travel faster. This also serves our benefit too of letting the projectiles disappear quicker, because hopefully they'll hit something quicker. We've also increased the lifetime of the projectiles slightly so that now it is a longer range sniper rifle. We've made the accuracy spread a little bit bigger. So with the reduced projectile, you can still see the hawk pattern. And also the projectiles themselves have a wide damage radius. So by increasing the pattern, we're giving you greater opportunity to hit things, especially when you're zoomed in. These are quality of life adjustments that we are making so that you hit more with the 7 projectiles. So we're hoping that, obviously, with the damage reduction, that kind of hurts, but with the quality of life changes, it will just be an easier gun to wield in general, so that it's still going to be a 7-shot sniper rifle. There's really not another 7-shot sniper rifle besides the Skull Masher from the last DLC. And this one's a fast-firing one, right, versus a slow-firing Jacobs. So there's trade-offs here, but it will be like the Skull Masher, except it's a fast-firing sniper rifle.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I saw that you guys are buffing some of the anointments. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Part of the allure of the anointment buffs were because the next content, I don't know if you guys seen it or not, the next piece of content that's coming out is pretty awesome. And there's a lot of interesting movement needed for that piece of content.
Like the aerial movement and some of the other things going on?
Yeah. So if you look at the anointment buffs were done to airborne, the slides, and some of the ones that were just kind of on the low end of like action skill end and whatnot. So in general, we wanted to look at some of those anointments and just make them more in line with others, right? Like a lot of our players are focused on the damage anointments. Well, we want to have that damage be executed in different playstyles. So now if you're in air, if you're sliding, if you're moving, you will have some of the same kind of damage output versus just like spamming your skill on the ground or something, right? So we want to enable those kind of play styles, and coupled with the next piece of content, you'll be moving a lot, and coupled with the changes to some of the weaponry, this all just kind of fits in a general thematic way of increasing player versatility across movement and across different play loops. That was the goal and the theme of all the changes and adjustments. With airborne anointments, we're looking at increased airborne damage, critical damage, and fire rate. So those 3 have all been adjusted upwards. And then with sliding, I think there was a bug with sliding that it wasn't actually receiving the full benefit while sliding, because it was like a scaler that was just not being applied to the maximum effect because it was like judging your speed, I think. So we just made it so that if you're sliding, big benefit. And then for action skill end, we looked at, I believe it was fire rate increase, and then the next two mag bonus damage increase and splash damage have all been increased. So splash damage builds are making a big comeback. I think one just kind of outlier was like the auto bear active. That one, I think it was just a significant increase to the incendiary damage to try to enable more Iron Bear kind of builds.
Sounds like there's going to be a ton of fun builds and fun play styles that we're able to do more now. That's really cool.
From a purely mechanical standpoint question, when is the damage buff from these anointments applied to the weapon? Is it when the bullet is fired or when it hits the target? So to give an example, if I have a 40% sliding anointment, for example, and I fire the weapon, do I need to be sliding when it hits in order to receive that buff from the anointment, or when the bullet or projectile is fired out of the gun itself?
When it's fired out of the gun.
Okay. So the idea is to encourage you to slide, fire, and then it applies the damage.
Yeah. In general, mechanically speaking, the damage of a projectile does not change while it's in air. It only changes before it's fired. There are some exceptions. Typically, the projectiles that do more insane things like like the Scourge or whatnot, like those can change. But then 80 to 90% of the weapons in the game, when you slide, when you jump, or whenever you activate those modifiers, those are activated on the weapon, and the projectile that's fired gains that while it's active.
Okay. It's an interesting programming note just to have for people out there who might not yet know how their damage is actually calculated. It's good for airborne too, because it means that you're getting your full damage values just by hitting spacebar or pressing your jump button on your controller and just firing away.
Yeah. And the reason mostly is just a technical reason, just the way like technically things are done. Like if you fired a bullet and if you can imagine this bullet traveling for 5 seconds, which is that's a very long time. That's a very long time for a bullet to travel in a first-person shooter. If you're saying that if I'm jumping up and down and the bullet's changing damage while I'm jumping up and down, there's a lot of calculations running, right? Like as it's traveling in the air. So generally it's before I fired, the weapon receives the adjustment, and then the bullet as an extension of the weapon is when it's fired gains the adjustment.
Okay. That's awesome.
This makes me want to try so many airborne builds. I'm excited.
I'm excited for Guardian Takedown because if I recall correctly, the trailer revealed that there's low gravity possibilities for people floating around and having more aerial play styles as a result of that. So that's exciting. That's very exciting. Yeah. I wanted to wrap things up a little bit by just kind of asking the most important question of all. We know that some guns are getting tuned down. We know that some guns are getting tuned up. And the ultimate goal is, as a result of this, more builds will feel more in line with what you guys are trying to accomplish. So there will be more build diversity, and there will be a slightly less pronounced struggle when you are going from Mayhem 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. That was the ultimate goal, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
So I think everything sounds like it's in a great place, even though some guns are being tuned in a certain way. It won't profoundly impact how they play at the highest levels of play.
Right. And I would say for the community, like if you have, if there's feedback as to things are just not feeling well, whatever, like Graham said, we scour the feedback all the time. Like we look at it, we send each other messages late at night, like, hey, did you see this guy post this video? That? Did you see this? Yeah, did you see that? And it's like, oh man, like we look at all of that and then we take notes, we put them in our schedule and we get to it when we can.
Right.
I looked at some SMGs for this content period, and even though I only touched about 8 to 9 to 10 or whatever, I'm still looking at all of them, trying to make sure that we can enable as many playstyles and different builds across all characters as much as we can. And, SMGs is just part one. Like there's, we have tons of assault rifles, right? Like we have, like we have tons of assault rifles, we have tons of pistols, and we're even releasing more gear in the Takedown and the next couple DLCs. So like we're trying to enable more and more builds across the board and make sure that like, if you have a favorite, it's viable. Like, even if it might not be the YouTube highlight of the day, right? It's still fun and viable, and you don't feel like you're shooting a brick wall, right? So the goal is to enable players to just enjoy the game the way they want to enjoy it.
That's
the idea
awesome.
is to make sure that if you are shooting a brick wall, you're equipped with a
Decimating the
howitzer.
wall.
No,
Yeah.
you're equipped with a howitzer essentially.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
And the other thing is too is this is like for Mayhem, this is just phase one, a whole list of changes, right? So as much as we're looking at a lot of numbers in this release, with the next DLC with phase two, you're going to start seeing action skill builds again. And we're doing a lot there where different types of gear builds, because of action skill being on class mods,
Right.
are going to completely change how some people even play Mayhem at the base level, make decisions about, do I play the gear game or do I play the skill game? And that's not something that's really been viable for them at Mayhem 10. It strictly became a very gear-oriented end game, and we're opening that back up. So we're excited as much as this release is the next one. There's so much more get out to the community.
Very
Right.
cool.
no, it's a lot, and I'm glad that there is a vision and a roadmap, and it seems like everything is headed in the right direction. It's a bit slow, but so it goes. Life sometimes has to be a very slow, deliberative process
I
in
think
order
it's
for meaningful change to be
amazingly
made.
fast right now.
All things considered,
considering
yeah.
what's been going on in the world, honestly. Thank you, you guys.
That's very fair.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to the community, for talking with us and sharing your thoughts about both these patches and hotfixes and where the game is heading and what you're trying to do with Mayhem with the health and shield changes and future changes coming soon. We're very excited for all of these changes. I'm very excited for the SMGs, but all of the changes to come. Thank you guys.
Cool.
It's got to be a lot of fun. Graham, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Thank you, Gearbox, for facilitating this to allow this interview to take place at all, because it is amazing that we get to speak with you guys. We love your passion, and we love this game so very much. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here with us today.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Man, that was an incredible interview. We're so glad we got to do it.
Can you believe it? I really enjoyed how succinct and elaborative at the same time they were in explaining both sides of why they made certain changes. They got right down to brass tacks, but when pressed on it, they weren't afraid to actually elaborate on their points and explain in a greater detail with actual numbers why they made these changes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible, and we're just humbled that we actually got the chance to sit down and talk with them for a while.
Yeah. And one thing that we actually talked about after the main interview that didn't make it into the video, but that we did want to let you guys know, the takedown that's dropping tomorrow, that is content that they almost completely put together and are shipping while they've all been working from home, which is a significant, very significant challenge, not just because they, may not have childcare or may have like their families around. They may not have the tech that they need. They're not all in the same place working together. There's so many challenges to working from home, and they basically did everything for this takedown while under lockdown, which is crazy and with very minimal delays. So just a huge thank you to Gearbox and these devs for talking to us, taking the time to talk to us and answer all these questions for us and for you guys especially, and for everything that they do, because they're giving us incredible in-game content even while the world is going crazy. And not only do we have Takedown tomorrow, but we have DLC coming in 2 weeks. That's just so incredible.
Yeah, they're really pulling it together, and all of these changes. We were sitting here watching while the interview was running, just kind of looking at all of your comments, and everything looked almost, not completely, but almost universally positive, especially for those who might be listening post the airing of this show. I can safely say that 95%, if not higher, not 100, but 95 or higher % of the comments were very positive. And I think a lot of people understand at this point why these changes were made, and how ultimately, even though, yes, there are a few top tier guns that are getting nerfed, the way the health is going to get crunched a little bit, it's not going to be so bad after all. I just wanted to turn on chat real quick. And of course, for those of you listening, we'll read a couple of the comments. What did you guys think of it? Did you guys have fun with our first interview with the devs?
Looks like that's a big yes.
I see a lot of hearts, a lot of hearts.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We have more to share with you today. How crazy is that?
Right.
We had this incredible interview. We had this incredible patch that we got to preview for you a little bit. And we have the IGN video that aired a little bit earlier today, in case you missed it. Hello to all our friends. This is 15 minutes of Bounty of Blood, the DLC that's dropping in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you guys. Like, I can't wrap my head around how soon that is. Takedown tomorrow, and in 2 weeks, this incredible DLC. Are you ready? You ready, Mitsu?
I am. I actually have not watched this yet. Have you watched this yet?
I just the very beginning, just to make sure it was working.
Oh, all right. Then we're in for a ride together. All right, chat. Let's come along. Let's do this.
Very, very cool.
Bounty of Blood. A tale about bunnies. That's what it is, right?
Yes. I thought I hit play, but I did not. Enter. Yeah. There we go.
So for those of you who are listening right now, I just wanted to edit this real quick. They're currently driving on what I believe is a Jet Beast, which is one of the new vehicles that you can drive around on. So you'll hear a lot of machine gun fire and things like that. Like that right there.
Dust clouds roamed across the blast plains, raising up the smell of spent munitions and old ghosts.
I'm going to assume that's the narrator.
Yeah.
Frontier stretched out so far you could tell yourself the heavens were close.
I love the music.
It was closer.
Very subtle.
Mm-hmm. I love how many different gun sounds there are in this game. They're all really good and really unique. It's crazy.
Joey Jojo in chat saying Stanley Parable vibes. Yeah, I kind of hear it a little bit too. Oh.
Oh my god.
Is that Barney? Big purple dinosaur? For those of you
Whoa!
wondering, yeah, whoa!
You saw that, right?
Yeah, like the opposable mandibles coming out like that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like Troy technically has that too, doesn't he?
super crazy.
Yeah. Haha, gun goes. I think this is the new jump pad.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Do you remember during the interview, while they were playing the interview, they talked about how they were buffing airborne anointments and things like that?
Yeah.
There's why.
That makes
Because
sense.
I assume there's going to be a lot of those around. And so you're going to be able to take advantage of that in order to be able to further take advantage of airborne anointments, for example. And I assume there are other anointments that they probably buffed with that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Word had gotten round about the sheriff's demise. The hideout was awash in the sounds of
I
celebration.
love this music so
Bottles
much.
clanking, half-remembered songs, and fire in the sky.
You're as good as core in the pan! Well, good or damn, I'm good!
I'm such a sucker for mechs. For those of you listening right now, Mo's just gotten her mech and is just obliterating things.
Yeah. Our woe, by the way, was in response to the maw of a giant dinosaur, not just opening like normally, but also opening like a
The
second
jaws down the
time.
middle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was crazy. I've never seen that before.
There's a term for that. I want to say it's like a mandible opening. I can't remember exactly, but like the mandible, your bottom jaw basically bifurcates and opens up that way.
Yeah.
Think of like insects. Some insects can do that too. Or
So cool.
oh, predator. That's the
Predator style,
Thank you,
yes.
Mups. I appreciate that.
Thank you, chat. You guys are the best. So cool. I love this, like, kind of Eastern, Western Firefly vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Dead meat.
Oh my
Another jump
god.
pad.
Get good or get dead, scrub.
That was
I think-
impressive.
Yeah. I think I want to work on an airborne build. This makes me want to work. I already did from the interview, but now I really do. Seeing it. I loved low grav in the pre-sequel a lot. I love the sections of low grav that we have in Skywell and in the Handsome Jackpot. So much fun. So happy to see more of that.
I'm liking this gun. I don't recognize it. I don't think I've seen it before. Have you seen this one?
No, it's an SMG, so I want it.
It's for those of you who are listening. It's a Molly 1 SMG green paint job, and it looks like it's firing out 4 or 5 bullets in a vertical or slightly like slanted pattern. Well, that's a tsunami, or is it DNA? I can't quite tell. Chat saying they think it's the tsunami. Yeah. Yes, it did. As a Zane player, I did not mess around with the tsunami very much, so I did not recognize it. Apologies.
Yeah, Tsunami got buffed, so could be cool.
That's definitely worth checking out.
Oh my god, even
Oh.
Bear can jump. Whoa.
Iron Bear, by the way, hit one of the jump pads and was able to get launched. So you don't have to hop out of Iron Bear if you go on one of the jump pads in the DLC, it seems.
Nice.
Which is good. Very good.
Nice.
Company scientists had some fancy name for the crystals they dug out of Gehenna's veins. Regular folks just took to calling it core. It fueled the company's weapons of war, and it did strange things to the devils and beasts. Whatever nightmares a company
Love
could
the
dream up,
music so
core
much.
made 'em real.
And the narrator.
Yeah. Somebody asked who the narrator was, by the way. The narrator is the narrator. As far as we know, you will never see the narrator in game. That could change.
Really?
Yeah, I believe he's supposed to be unseen as far as we know for the entire game. But again, we haven't played it yet, so we really don't know. But I think that was the intention, just to have it be like a disembodied voice that follows you around the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah. Works. I want to know who the voice actor is.
Multi-kill, yeah!
So cool.
Iron Bear just shredding racks right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Oof.
Pick the wrong fight.
Radiation explosion, probably my favorite sound effect in this entire game.
I love the skins on all of the guns that they're using.
Yeah.
Back in town, Juno was looking for Titus. Of course she wouldn't find him. That pleasure was reserved for the Vault Hunter.
I really like this narrator guy. Typhon would like him.
He's pretty boss. I have to agree.
Homing rocket. Tee-hee.
I can hardly believe my eyes.
I love the style of this town.
Gun those devil riders down and get me out of here.
Titus. Of course he found himself in trouble. Now, devil riders don't take prisoners unless they got designs on them. Who knows what the poor bastard was in for.
The architecture of the town is definitely that east meets west feel that we'd been hearing about quite a bit over the course of the lead up to this. So the roofs and the buildings themselves are very old school wooden style, but you can see, like, if we look in the right here, and for those of you listening right now, there is kind of like a Japanese, I believe, Shinto style gate for, I guess, what looks like a door that perhaps leads out of town or into a little Zen garden or something like that. But it still retains like that rustic feel that you would see in the American West in, you know, the 1800s. And the roofs are very slanted and have a pagoda-like feel to them, but the actual tiles themselves kind of still retain, like, again, a Western 1800s kind of feel to it.
Yeah,
in the way
it's
designed.
very like Western, but with modern, which, I mean, I love this about Borderlands. It marries so many different styles from so many different wonderful genres, and most of them
Yes.
are my favorite, like cyberpunk and like steampunk and diesel punk and all the punk. It's great. And honestly, it really, really, really makes me think of Firefly, which is one of my favorite TV shows ever in the history of
Me too.
television. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like space cowboys. It doesn't get much better than that, right?
That and the other thing that comes to mind is the works of Cowboy Bebop and Shinichiro
Yes.
Watanabe, who is great at always taking two themes and mashing them together. Like, up until, I believe, Cowboy Bebop, nobody ever tried to put jazz to a space western.
Yeah.
And so they brought those two together. Or hip-hop music with samurai, with
Yeah.
Samurai Champloo. You put those two together. So this has that kind of feel to it, where you're taking two themes and mashing them together in a really clever way.
Yeah, and Borderlands does that so well.
Yeah. Tsunami looks amazing, by the way.
Yeah. 2 weeks. This comes out in 2 weeks. June 25th. Guardian Takedown tomorrow. This DLC that we're watching right now, June 25th. Tomorrow being June 11th for anybody listening.
Cryo machine gun. That's the good.
Yeah.
That's on Iron Bear, by the way, for those of you listening at home.
Man, is it good to see you? I stole this off a Devil Rider that was roughing me up. It's something the company made, and I thought it might come in handy. You take it.
Ooh. Give me the sweet loots.
Do we know who that is?
Now,
That
you see
didn't
that
quite look
Titus?
familiar to me.
I
Titus?
think new
That's Titus. Okay.
character.
Called a core exploder. Give it your knuckles. Quick now. Get me out of here before those Devil Riders come back and try
I
to
think
beat us
all of the characters in this DLC are new. I think all of the NPCs, everybody we encounter, I think, I'm trying to remember where they said that. It might have been on the Borderlands show that it was mentioned.
Yes, it's been mentioned a couple times in a couple different places. The Borderlands show was, I believe, one of them. in this particular expansion, they've wiped the slate clean and they are just doing completely new characters. Now, whether or not that's like most truth, as in maybe one or two shows up, that remains to be seen. But as far as we have been let aware of what's going on with this is just new people completely, absolutely new slate. And what just happened, by the way, for those listening, there is a greenish plant that kind of grows out of the ground, or I guess it's like a rock formation. You can melee it and a green energy wave will be pushed forwards, which can actually destroy terrain as a result of it. So the mission right now seems to be rescuing somebody named Titus from a jail, which the Moe's player could not get into. They meleeed the crystalline structure and it blew a hole in the wall of the, I guess it's some sort of sheriff station, perhaps. We don't quite know, and then it blew a hole, so I assume they're going to go in now.
So cool.
Well, damn! I told you those things were volatile! Now I see why Sheriff outlawed company goods in town.
Why rescue them? You can open up a whole bunch of safes.
Times, I suppose.
Gotta get the loot.
Now listen.
Right. More important things
Devil
afoot.
Riders
Yeah.
talking about the stone. Said they were keeping it up top in the bathhouse. I'll show you the way. Follow me.
I'm so excited to play this.
Can you believe that? Those devil
now
riders
they're going
are
through that gate.
celebrating the sheriff's death with damn fireworks. Ugh. We'll give them a reason to stop celebrating soon enough. Come on then, let's show these devil riding festercocks they ain't so damn tough.
We'll have to wait and see, Pop.
Will you dead? Deader than dead! Extra dead!
Extra dead.
Wow, he's aggressive.
I love it.
You ever been extra dead? Not same. Actually, that's not true. I've played Molly 1 Takedown. I've been extra dead before. They're smashing a whole bunch more of the destructible plant. They seem to be trying to take that to a whole new level.
Oh, that wonderful second wind.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Good shooting there, Tex. Uh-oh.
He'll be
Oh, I'm
fine.
sure Titus is just gonna revive
nice.
Moe's. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Amazing how every new DLC is just better and better and better. So cool.
Makes me wonder if all of these different like concepts that they've introduced in each DLC will be culminated in the fourth one.
Yeah.
Like these are all kind of like introducing the concepts and new ideas that they have, and then they're just going to bring it all together at the end and showcase what they like everything is really capable of. That, and maybe if there are further takedowns after Guardian Takedown, you could see a lot of these mechanics, especially from this DLC where they're introducing jump pads and exploding plants or crystalline formations. You can see that being utilized in a future takedown as well, perhaps.
That would be so cool. Oh, man. Just chasing after Titus.
There it is. Bounty of Blood, Borderlands 3's newest DLC, DLC 3, arriving June 25th. 2 weeks. 2 very long weeks.
Yeah. 2 weeks flies by. And we'll be very occupied with the very, very, very awesome Guardian Takedown and Phase 1 of Mayhem 2.0 patches, changes in the patch tomorrow.
Yeah.
So cool.
And what we covered in today's patch notes rundown is only about half of the CVS list of CVS receipt list, I should say, of changes that are actually coming to the game. And I encourage you, when the patch notes go live, to absolutely check all of them out. They address a lot of stability issues, a lot of optimization issues. There's definitely a lot of interesting little tidbits that you might have actually been personally affected by that are going to be changed. So just because you didn't hear it doesn't necessarily mean it's not in there. So when those go live, make sure you check them out on borderlands.com.
Yep. And the patch will be live for you to play around in tomorrow.
Yes. One more thing before we wrap up today. I got to take a moment to gloat a little bit. I knew it wasn't a rumor. I knew it.
So
the
cool.
other week, we ran a segment, I believe, with Lazy and Liz, where we had the chance of discussing whether or not Cate Blanchett may be our Lilith for the Borderlands movie. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, Cate Blanchett is confirmed to be our Lilith for the Borderlands movie, with Variety first reporting the rumor and Lionsgate finally putting forth a press release last Thursday confirming and solidifying that she is, in fact, our Lilith. Knew it.
Yeah.
Friggin' knew it.
I'm so excited to see that. That just, I mean, it certainly elevates the movie already. And I mean, people, and myself very much included, are already super hyped for this film. Having Cate Blanchett in it just means it's going to be a completely level beyond what I ever could have expected. She's awesome. I think she's going to do an incredible job. So cool.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see who else as a result winds up becoming attached to this project. Because now you have Eli Roth, big name, and you have Cate Blanchett, very big name. Both of these are really big deals. And so I can't wait to see who else they attract to the project as a result. Because I can see a lot of people perhaps wanting to work with Cate Blanchett. That's a big deal, especially in the nerd world. She's had so many awesome roles in Lord of the Rings, of course, and of course Hela in Thor Ragnarok. So she's got a resume, and well, she's just dang talented. We'll see what happens.
So cool.
So with all of that, Revenge of the Cartels unfortunately ends tomorrow morning. However, we trade it off for the Guardian Takedown tomorrow. Tomorrow, and I can't wait. Borderlands Legendary Collection is out right now for your Switch. It's Borderlands, Borderlands 2, and the pre-sequel, and all of their related expansions. You should probably get on that, because I certainly did, and it was very much worth. Tess, where can they find you?
Twitch.tv/Borderlands every Monday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and also on my own channel, twitch.tv/Tessichka, mornings around 10 a.m. Eastern, and late evenings, usually playing lots of Borderlands. Right there. So, and Mitsu on his channel, twitch.tv/Mitsu.
That's me, MITSU. And of course, twitter.com, where I do my best work, twitter.com/Mitsu Show, MITSUSHOW. And of course, on the Borderlands channel as well, Mondays and Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, going all the way until 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Yes, time zones. I did get that right. That was actually impressive.
Yeah. Bordercast, this is a very special episode, but Bordercast usually airs Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, every Tuesday. And then bi-weekly every other Thursday, including tomorrow, we air Ultimate Vault Hunter, which is a very, very cool show hosted by our teammate, Liz, 55. She has a different guest every week. Tomorrow, her guest is Moxie, who's hanging out in chat. She's talking to him about a really cool Amara build. I won't tell you anything else. Just stop by tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be a blast. And thank you guys so much for joining us for this special episode of Bordercast. We're so lucky that we got to do this interview and show it to you guys. Thank you all so much for hanging out. If those of you guys listening and watching on YouTube VODs or Twitch VODs, if you like the show as much as we love doing it, please be sure to subscribe, follow, make sure you turn on notifications. If you just remember that 4 p.m. time slot, you'll always find us. But just in case, every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're here. We're also available as audio-only podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play Music. I think that's all of them. I might have missed one.
We'll just add more as we go along.
Basically, every platform you can possibly find us on, we're there.
More or less. We're fancy like that. So, with all of that out there, on behalf of Tess, myself, Grant, Graham, Gearbox, 2K, everybody on every team, the stream team, and everything to come, wink. Thank you so much for joining us as you do every single week. Now go forth and make some mayhem.